Hey, Rush It's Reckless here, and welcome to what I learned from playing Fights of Three. Starting us off with tip number 1, play aggressive. I know that as a Rush player, this is just our natural playstyle, but playing aggressively in this brawl is much more valuable than playing defensively. By having your units closer to the enemy base, you can guarantee that some of your units will walk into the enemy base and therefore make more room for you to play more units. Basically, you want to be making opportunities for you to play out more units by getting rid of your units on the board, and what better way to do this than by throwing them into the enemy base. Take a second to look at the board from the opponent's point of view. By playing defensively, the enemy set down 3 units on the board, and even if I hadn't won this turn with Wolf Cloaks, I easily would have won the game in the next turns. And that brings us to tip number 2, make good trades. When you have to play defensive, but make sure you do it right. A good trade is where you don't overcommit with your units, such as playing too defensively or limiting your unit space by keeping a low strength unit on the board. I cannot stress enough how many players fall into the trap of making bad trades. Oftentimes, by winning the trade against the enemy units, you limit the units you can set down on the board. For example, in this clip, the enemy only makes bad trades by always one-upping my units, and instead of dealing with any of their units, I keep them all alive and completely lock out the enemy from playing any units and secure my victory. And finally, tip number 3, use phantom units. Phantom units are units that die on play but provide some type of advantage. Examples of this are units with death effects, units with on-play abilities, but actually, a phantom unit can be any unit with or without an effect. Essentially, while you have 3 units on the board, all your units in hand become phantom units because they will die upon being played. This specific condition for this brawl can be extremely useful if used correctly. For example, if I have a dragon on board, I can toss out my spare dragonling as a phantom unit for free value. I can also use frost hexers as a phantom unit for the on-play freeze effect, or even siege breakers as a phantom unit to tear down some structures. What most don't consider is the idea of tossing out any units, whether that be with or without an effect. By using a card like green prototypes as a phantom unit, I am speeding up my cycles so that I can draw into more important cards in the long run. For this brawl specifically, you should master this tech. Now, before I send you all off to become my prey in Brawl, I want to show you all one of my Brawl games. We start off strong with a 3 mana Hearth, but make a brutal mistake on mana 4 considering the enemy is playing Shadowfen. My units get destroyed by Crimson Chin, so we try making progress once again by setting down 2 units. Poison into marked as prey, and the game is looking really bad for me. A lucky cycle into a 2 mana card, and at this point, what do? Following tip number 1, I just decide to go fully aggressive. I also have freeze in hand to slow down the enemy push if needed. If I had 1 more mana, I would have done a Shyvana play, but instead we go super aggressive. The enemy decides to play aggressive as well, and at this point we are in some trouble. Or are we? You see, the average Stormbound player would think so, but maybe I should remind you, I'm not the average player. I drop a handshake knowing the game is over, and of course, my trusty Wolf Cloak shows up and we get the beautiful win. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and see you in the next one. Peace!